Hello and welcome to Havenside Hangout, a Vampire the Masquerade chat set in our own homes in a pretty relaxed fashion. So this came about really because when we changed the format for our break, that we would have a break and you would have a break when you're watching. One of the things that meant we missed out on was the chance to hang out with you at home and talk to you about things, and also just for us to talk about the game in a more relaxed way. So this session hopefully is going to cover some of those things. Now, I know that some of you wonderful, wonderful people have sent us questions already, and I will be throwing those in a moderately nice way, but not always nice way, at our players as we go through this session. But if you're watching us live and you think of more questions or you didn't get a chance to ask in the week, then do put them into the chat, and Mitch will gather them up tenderly and bring them to me to ask on the stream. So I should say, of course, I have some people with me tonight. They are? And who are you, anyway?
I'm Phil. I generally play Silas Shaw on this channel, and I'm looking forward to these questions and love these good people so much.
I'm Bex, and this is my real voice. Normally, normally I sound like a gay blonde-haired American, but really, I'm a 43-year-old mum.
The power of role playing.
Yeah. Or
muted.
Yeah.
There we go.
I am Carlos, and I was muted.
And I suppose, something that also occurs to me, when we reflect on the format, is that I never introduced myself.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Just like, you don't need to know who I am. Just sit down and listen
Just
to
the one
game.
delivering you entertainment. That's what I'm doing.
So I am Peter, and normally I am the storyteller, whereas today I am the bringer of horror in the form of the questions.
So what's the difference?
Well, hopefully very little if I do my storytelling job right. So as I say, there are a number of questions that I'm going to be giving to you. But before we got to the questions, there was something I just wanted to have a general chat about, purely because it's interesting to me. I obviously have a naive hope it might be interesting to someone who's listening along as well. We'll find out. And that is that obviously all of you role play on the stream, but you also role play off the stream as well, as do I at times, a variety of games. And I thought it might be interesting just to talk about what for you the difference is like between the two. And also specifically, if there are things that you kind of like about playing on the stream versus at home, and also what you like about playing at home versus on the stream, kind of where you are with that as a sort of general, throw it out to you, see what you think of it.
I think what I like about the stream, it's two big things I like about the stream. First, knowing that our community is there watching, because I mean over the years, the community has grown and it has evolved. People have come and left, others have stuck around. And the fact that they are there, and then after the session, we get the interactions with them over Twitter or any other form of social media, or just having a chat because some of them have become our friends. I think it's really cool. Like knowing that you're playing, but that you're providing entertainment for other people. And also, I think the second thing I like is the structure. It feels different because when you're playing with friends, you take your time, you ponder, you do this, you do that, you get to fool around sometimes with your characters. But on the stream, I think we are more structured. We get into our characters a little bit deeper because we want to make the most out of the time we have. It's just 3 hours a session, 10 sessions a season, 3 seasons per Chronicle. So we want to squeeze things into it, and sometimes I feel it's better if we put our minds behind who our characters are for them. So I think it's a little bit more involved.
Oh, what about the other two of you? What do you think? Oh, I should say as well, Lane can't be with us tonight. Someone's missing from this picture. Lane can't be with us tonight. She will be back with us next week, and obviously our thoughts with you, Lane, and hope everything goes well. So, so Carlos was just talking about his feelings on this. What about the other two of you? Where are you with this?
So one of the things I noticed since I started playing this game is that I make different decisions in a stream game than I would make in a game where there weren't people watching. Because you will always try to choose the course of action I think is most narratively interesting. Whereas, even if that means failing at something that I could have succeeded at, because it feels like it's a more collaborative version of storytelling, right? That you can do by doing that, you can give somebody else an opportunity to have a moment, in some way or another, and that's quite fun. And I also like that it's quite fast paced. I guess it's a version of what Carlos was saying, that you can't. So, some of you will know, if you let me, I will meander for 4 or 5 hours on a topic. Yeah. And obviously that's terribly interesting to me and not very many other people. So actually it's kind of nice to be in a situation where you have to go and make this, not just make decisions quite quickly, but you have to go and sorry, I was just hearing something in my ear.
No, it's okay. Yeah. Peter left but came back.
Yes. But you have to have some kind of semblance of sticking to time rather than kind of wandering around. So that is that's what I love about it. And I do think it's quite different actually than a group of people sitting around a table where you don't have other people who are watching you.
Well, it is very, very different. The fact that is role playing with an audience. So if you have ever had someone be a guest and be the audience, it's that feeling.
Yeah. Sorry, Phil, is there anything you want to jump in with before I talk for 7 hours on this topic?
I mean,
talk for many more hours.
For me, I came to this when I was 6 months into these games, little baby. So of course, through the Blood and Tamas's Chronicle, I've been growing and learning as this, and I've been of course learning a lot more, building more complex characters now. Which again, because you always start simple, but you always you want to make something that's going to be for a create character and create size. So it's what can be a character that's going to entertaining way, but also a different kind of character arc that maybe hasn't been played on the stream. I don't know. I was very pulling on ideas out my ass really, which again is so good fun. And one thing I so enjoy about this is as Carl said, is knowing that people are watching and that you enjoying the feedback is incredible. Because before this, I've done some amateur musicals, and for them, it's knowing the audience is there just makes it better, even better doing it. It's a little weird to have just again anything. It's like the fan art. You guys have made me cry. You guys have made me cry on stream several times, and I know damn well at some point you're going to make me do it again. That is a given.
Yeah.
But
we do ask them to make you cry on a semi-regular basis.
Is that one of your things?
Can you make Phil cry this week? Yeah. And they're like, yeah, of course. There's something though that you're all, I think, talking about that I definitely agree with, which is this thing where on the one hand it is just like a normal role-playing game in that we play characters, you tell a story, you roll dice, things like that happen, but that there is an audience. So for me, certainly there's always an awareness of, well, what if I was just watching this and I wasn't playing it? Because I think when you're at home, like if I'm a player in a regular role-playing game, I like to indulge, right? If my character likes a particular SPC,
Yep.
And I want to go and have a chat with them for like 13 hours. And then maybe they've said something interesting. So now I want to go and talk to the other SPC they mentioned and talk to them for 13 hours. But not necessarily in ways that are driving the story forward or doing radically interesting things for everyone else, you know?
So
You guys are super lucky you don't have 8 hours of Velvet and Seth, right?
yeah.
Like,
No, I mean,
There'll suddenly be a flurry in chat of, no, we want the Seth and Velvet show.
no, but the thing is that I mean, you're probably the type of MMORPG player that goes to every single side quest and then has a conversation with the NPC. That you see, oh, I see a question mark over that NPC. You go over there and then you sit down and read the whole text and you try to exhaust all the options and all that.
Yeah.
And then when you're playing on the stream, it's more of an adventure game with no side quest, like very minimal, like an adventure game, very fast track, one line with your personal side quests along the line.
So one thing actually
I really like. Oh, fight.
Sorry.
Go on then, after you.
Well,
I'm not a storyteller today. You can interrupt anytime you want.
Oh, the only thing was just to add to what you said. That's been interesting for me about this is that when I create characters, I never set goals for them, not ever, because I like to just wander around with them. And in this, you have to do that because if there's a story arc, you don't know where you're going, then you are wandering around, but it's just not very interesting.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So actually, that's a thing that I've learned that I've being involved in this that I didn't have. Yeah, I didn't have before.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I also because I do like what I would call, I suppose, kind of character-based role playing, and I like when I role play, I take it seriously. Some might say too seriously. And one of the things that I like about the stream is it makes everybody take it seriously, right? That everybody's like, okay, we're all going to be here. We're starting at 7, so we have to be here. We're live on the internet, so it's not, sometimes you might have a player who says, well, yeah, we're starting at 7, but I'll show up at 8.
No, in my game.
Or you'll get people that say, or you'll get people that say, oh yeah, I'm sorry, something came up, I'm not free this week.
Yeah.
Or you'll get people who are kind of on their phones, or obviously none of the people watching the show, you're all wonderful, I'm sure, but there are players out there like that, and it can be a bit frustrating because obviously you're all equal at the table, and it's just good manners, and that's the only thing you have to kind of enforce that, unless things get nasty. So yeah. I like the stream because it kind of makes everybody say, right, we're going to bring our A game, and it makes everybody say, okay, how can we make this better from week to week? There's a sort of reflection and analysis that goes on, I feel, on the stream that maybe I wouldn't do if I was just role playing in a game. And that for me is, I guess it makes it a bit more crafty, as in it's a craft that I'm trying to work on rather than just a game that I'm playing for fun purely.
Yeah.
But obviously I'm enjoying it, but it's also a thing where I want to try and do it well.
I'm going to go for that because I certainly am enjoying it. You with all this, it is inspiring. It is inspiring. So it's like a lot of these books are here because I've been inspired by you, or by everyone here, everyone here, both in chat and on stream, all these wonderful people, to try more and go out more, go out and reach more. And thank you so much for that. You all are.
Yep.
Yes, you are all awesome people. Now, because we're mentioning you awesome people, maybe we should go to a question from one of you awesome people. There are a few. And it's really good because I had these topics and I was like, oh, I've got to introduce this next topic now. But now I don't, because Elthane's is going to do it for me. So he has a question. Oh, hello, Elthanes. You're wonderful, by the way.
Hello.
Feel
support. And
I always feel that the thing about Elthanes is he often makes I feel, insightful comments about what he thinks is going on in the story that are often shockingly correct.
Like, oh, he makes some predictions. It's like, I bet this is going to be this way, and a few episodes later, it's like, oh, he did that premonition.
Is he Malkavian in the ghost chat? Because I can't see what's in there. Is he Malkavian? Because that sounds.
I don't know.
Does this mean he's just really frustrated with us? Where he's like, obviously it's this. Why aren't you going that way?
Probably he's very frustrated at us. I think he did play a Dunson. Sort of like Giovanni in in the Memoriams, and they have Auspex too. So anyone with premonition.
I love it, Giovanni.
Good role playing. I like it.
That was terrifying and amazing.
Yeah, I think
Giovanni should be terrifying. That's what they are.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think Elfang's is in. I think he was like a venture on the Discord channel. I don't know. I don't remember.
The best
but go on.
Only Mitch knows.
Yeah,
These are forbidden secrets for us.
Yeah.
Oh, he is.
Come on, Mitch.
Ghost of Mitch. He is always watching from somewhere, you know. He's always there. Like one of those Force ghosts. So anyway, Elthanes has a question for you, players. And it's nice because it leads us on to the discussion that I was going to have around season 3. And he wants to know how you would rate the outcome of your character's individual plans so far. So he would like to know how you as players would rate the outcome of your character's plans.
Is this like
so
1 to 10, where 10 is staggeringly successful and 1 is you might as well give up?
Probably.
I mean, you can put a number on it if you like, but I think probably also some words and context would be pretty great too. I'm going to nominate Phil to start us off because he looks like he's thinking the most. And there's still a bit of storyteller in me.
Yeah. Thank you. For science, his plan, his objective, of course, has just been met. Vengeance, which because that's been a little thing about working with Peter. That some of that's been shown. That's been developing, but I don't think it's been officially said yet. But there has been
certainly in season 3, your main desire was or ambition was to get revenge on Amargo for bringing down your prince, and that is something you've achieved for sure. So, what number would you put on it?
I mean, for that, it's achieved 10 out of 10. But for next plans, I think 50-50. Going.
Are there any other plans that Silas has had already so far that he has either achieved or is on the way to achieving?
The plan for he was sorry. I was impressed that he survived the games without losing a limb.
Me too.
Yeah,
me
too.
I
didn't try.
Yeah, I like that.
You are not alone in that feeling.
Panic. I was.
Yeah, because one of your ambitions was to win the games in season 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was to win games. Impress. Which I should have seen the game thing coming to Silas because it was build, but I'm now going as a player when they said that Silas was up for it. I'm there as a player going, fuck. But yeah, again
that's what we wanted.
Yep.
All right, let's jump on to.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so he's also playing on. He's playing on reconnecting more with his touchstone Jenny, which yes, I know, such a bad thing to happen, but let's park
there a moment because I know there are people who want to know about your future plans. That might be another question from another group. So let's come to that later. So talking about current plans in season 3, how far you think you're getting to them. Numbers optional. And I'll go to Bex next.
Well, in summary, I'm trying to shiv my sire, as everybody knows, which is a worthy goal. I'm now in a position where I don't know if I've succeeded. Most of the people who tried to help me might be dead, and I can't go back to the house and find out. So I reckon this is like a 2 or 3 in terms of success so far. Yeah. But this is what you get for the kind of expertly planned operation that I ran in that regard.
Well, I think if Wallace ends up dead because of this, it would be a 10 out of 10. For plan achieved, and a 1 out of 10 for feelings and how you feel about it.
I think one of the problems is if it's successful, this will do nothing to tell Velvet that he should operate differently the next time. Yeah, but yeah. So that's obviously his this is his current ambition. He's always had the same desire all the way through the game, which is all Adam all the time. But there hasn't been any time for that. And now Joanne's got the love nest. It's just a fucking disaster. Yeah. So I think, we'll see. Hopefully, by the time we get to episode 10, he'll get some recon from his brother about how dead or not Wallace is. So
cool.
Yeah.
But what about you, Carlos? Where's Theodore in all this?
Well, it's a funny position because when the Chronicle started, his main ambition was to gain a title of Oxfordshire. It's of course, down the line, knight or any other position, But then after seeing how things went on, and that was before he knew he was a La Sombra. Spoilers. If you haven't watched season 1, episode 3, but
there's going to be loads of spoilers. You're not up to date. Sorry,
they're gonna hate me for blowing that out.
We've already like, what? Silas won the games.
He's not a very true. So so this is an ambition that predated all of that, and knowledge of who he was, and then especially the conversation he had with Velvet about the matters of lordship and being around. That's when Theodore realized that probably what he was looking for in a position, like a title, was to be able to lead through example in a respectable manner. The respect you offer to higher station and all of that. But he realized after that conversation he had a little bit twisted. Not twisted. He was putting a little bit too much effort in things that other people would think, and he didn't care about that. So his ambition changed immediately before Drogo was killed. He wanted to make the La Sombra accepted and respected because that is who he is. And now the death of Drogo has both thrown a wrench into his plans, but also provided several other opportunities. So I would say that since he's very pragmatic in his eyes, he sees the middle of combat as not the time for planning, but the time for strategizing. You plan beforehand, and he's in the middle of it now. So Miyuki's safe. Naoto is dead. Amago is dead.
Double win. Triple win.
But Melior has been captured, and he's still a hidden La Sombra. So I would put himself, he would think he's at 7, maybe 8 out of 10 on so far as things go. He's making the most of the situation.
So,
Ooh.
Pete, how are your plans going?
Well, it's interesting you should ask that because there are some My Plan related questions coming up shortly in this, which I think are relevant to this. I was just working out in my head the best order to ask some of the questions that we've got. So this might seem like a random thing to ask, but it will become relevant in a minute, which is that Amis, the lovely Amis, also known as the Bowman, would like to know if the players are intending on watching the Memoriams when the Chronicle is done.
Yes.
So the Memoriam sessions, for anyone who hasn't seen them, shame on you. They are, no, I'm kidding. They're set between seasons 2 and 3 in terms of when we aired them. And they tell kind of stories from Oxfordshire's past around the foundation of the domain and critical events in its history. There were 3 of them that we did. And obviously we had fabulous players drawn from the Ghouls themselves. And in this case, obviously, Mitch also joined us to play Sir Thomas throughout them all. So anyway, back to Amis's question. Players, are you planning to watch the Memoriams when the Chronicle is done?
I have already watched them because I was in chat helping the tech ghouls daily, and that's when I was given the mighty sword of power. And I have to thank I think it's GM Amis' son. He supported giving Carlos power on the chat 100%. So yeah,
Well, I've got
I
a
watched
question
them
for
all
him
and I
coming
love
up
them.
shortly.
Okay, cool.
So I haven't watched them, which I should say it's not because we were banned from watching them. It's because for me, there is a difficulty in that kind of meta thing of going, where's the separation between things I know, things the character knows, and it's easier to manage if you just don't know things. I know it's not the same for everybody, but that's how it is for me.
I feel pretty similar to that, actually.
Yeah, so it is. Otherwise, you just get, I can't remember how I know this thing, so I'll just assume I know it. And I know it felt to me like some of the things that happen in that would be quite critical to they would be things that Velvet would have an interesting perspective on. So my intention is to watch them once we're finished, for sure.
Cool. And Phil, what about you?
I did watch it live because I was fascinated to see what the community would bring. I was like,
It was really interesting.
Wow, that's incredible! And so many amazing moments from that. I mean, Joey was
Great, don't spoil it me.
just wait to Joey. That's a favorite moment from it. But yeah, everyone was so incredible, and yeah, I know damn well Silas wouldn't know any of it. Like,
yeah, something actually that I did say at the time, but I always feel kind of bears repeating, was that was, lockdown has been not awesome, obviously for many reasons, but in terms of the stream, it meant that we can't gather in the same place, and that has been a kind of real shame, because I feel like there's a certain energy you get when you're in the room together that's hard to replicate over the internet. But the silver lining was that we had this opportunity to bring people in that wouldn't normally get, wouldn't normally play. And the thing that I was really blown away by, and I know Carlos had a very similar experience when he did the Blood on the Seven one-shots, but more on Blood on the Seven later, was just how much everybody committed. Right?
Yes,
everybody just went in 100% and like worked really hard on their characters and coming up with background. And I feel like one-shots are really challenging from the point of view that you have, Carlos mentioned earlier that even in the stream, in the Chronicle, you got very limited time actually to get your character across. The one-shot, that is like concentrated down. You might have 2-3 scenes to really get your character across to the audience. People really went for it, and I was blown away, to be honest with you. So this question about the Memoriams is something of a trap question. So Bex, you have saved yourself. You can sit back and relax for this next bit, because there is a follow-up question. Let me see if I can hunt it.
actually, something
down.
stronger.
Need something stronger.
Yeah, water. I finished my Coke.
To have water.
So there is a question from Len, the wonderful Len, who of course took part in the Memoriams as well,
And
in the Blood on the Seven one-shots as well. And she wants to know what you as players think I might be doing as a storyteller. So basically, what are your ideas about where I'm heading for with Blood on the Tamases this season? Where do you think season 3 is going? Also, perhaps based on what you might have seen in the Memoriams. If you haven't seen the Memoriams yet, I can't answer it.
Well,
yeah, predictions of where you think season 3 is going.
Well, we only have 5 episodes left, and and the usurper Helena, who thinks herself Prince of Reading, or anywhere for that matter, has to be dealt with. And if what we did with Amago is any sign of our, ability to take plans and make them happen, it took like 3 sessions just to get to Amago, and then the similar amount to get to Wallace. So I'm half expecting to have, I don't know, like Sir Thomas Delamore arrive like in episode 10 and say like, who killed Drogo? Oh, we already killed him, but it was because of that bitch. Okay, and a ghost kills a lot of people and then leaves. You know.
Like it. So your prediction is last episode is Mitch as guest player,
Yeah.
backing us to Thomas,
Yeah.
reading all the riot act about what happened, and then you like firing
probably,
him
yeah,
at
probably.
Helena.
And then if he does that, then he's my prince. I
Sweet.
mean, he's a founding knight.
Then you can say to him, "I accept you as prince."
But now
Yeah.
that you've proven
Now
yourself,
you have proven yourself.
Yeah.
All right. And does anyone have any differing predictions about where they think season 3 is going?
By anyone, he means you, Phil, because
I
Wait, I
don't.
can have a
watch-
view, can't I?
You can
No,
also
but-
have a view. You
Oh,
just
yeah,
can't base
yeah.
it on the Memoriams. But you
yeah,
can also
exactly. You cannot base it on the Memoriams because you haven't
That's
watched
fine.
it.
You can-
That's
Okay.
okay.
You don't need Memoriams to have views.
No, exactly. What the hell is this, right?
If you want to go in there, Phil, you go for it.
I mean, from how the thing that Margo ended with, with the sirens, and they're going, that smells Second Inquisition. That stinks Second Inquisitions, and they're going,
Oh yeah, yeah.
what have you done to us, chat? What have you done? You don't get me the fuck out of here.
Yeah, that's also-
Strange you think that chat would have had anything to do with what happened with that session. Why
Yeah.
would you blame those innocent, sweet people?
Anything
Couldn't
that
possibly,
I'll hold
any
Chad,
way,
yeah, I'll hold
for a
Chad
story mode,
responsible.
influence that scenario.
I'll hold Chad responsible for anything that happens to my grandsire Meliore. I mean, why mess with my grandma? There were so many other kindred, and you mess with my grandma.
And my grandma and my sire.
Your grandma and your sire were not
don't-
taken by a
We
black
don't know
van.
that. We
Your
don't know
grandma's
that.
handy. I think she's going to be fine.
We don't know that. We don't know where the fuck they are. But yeah, so from the Memoriams, I mean, there's other characters, Thomas Delmore, and others that could certainly make an appearance. Who, at this point, being much older, will bring some serious thing. Which it's gonna turn into a political minefield, which is gonna be, you turn the wrong way, you lose your head. So it could well be.
That is the hope, obviously.
Alternatively, can we have the bowman come back? I can point him in the direction of Helena really fast.
Well, there are questions about the Memoriam characters coming up, which I will address in a minute.
Okay.
But yes, it's an interesting question. What has happened to the bowman, and will he return? We'll think about
We'll
that.
send him to Reading. We'll give him the whole of Reading.
You can have all of Reading. All of Reading.
You're divvying up domain.
And all the kindred there.
So what about you, Bex? What do you think? Where do you think season 3 is going?
Well, here is a fun fact for you. I don't ever consider in games I play where they're going. So I have no idea. But I also don't consider where games I'm running are going, as you know. Yeah. So it's just not a thing that enters my head because I kind of just like to see what happens. So it doesn't, I don't think about it. There you go. There's my answer.
Go.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So while we're talking about Memoriams, there was a question from DM Amazon, my son, I should say, about are there plans to incorporate the Memoriam characters into the story? And the answer to that question is yes. Now, that might be a bit of a tease because obviously I might incorporate them into the story just because they might get mentioned.
Yeah, and I think something of that has already sort of happened, or at least the actions.
Yeah.
Because in the first 2 seasons, there was no mention of the weakened state of Sir William. It was always said that he was like sort of mummified and stuff, but not in a weakened state. And that has come to light after the Memoriam with the Tremere.
I mean,
interesting.
For those of you, if you want to go back and watch season 1, you might also, though, recall there have been certain references, even in season 1, to Sir William's speed and health. Just dropping it in there because I care about these things. But yes, it's true. Now the Memoriams have happened, certain things have kind of been brought into the light and have been brought into a more kind of a more serious focus. And yeah, that absolutely there are some thoughts about Memoriam characters. It also partly depends on what the players do and where the players go specifically as well. Yes, there are some plans, but I might be teasing you a bit by saying that, but there are definitely some plans. Okay, I'm just going to have a quick skim to see, because I feel like tying up the Memoriam thing is kind of nice at this point. And I think, oh, yes. So another question from Amis, which is a good question, and one that I will partially answer, but I will also partially field towards Carlos. He is the voice of the future,
Dun, dun, dun.
and kind of slowly decaying voice of the present, soon to be the voice of the past. Which is about, do we have any more kind of memoriams or spin-off one-shots in mind as a plan? And if we do, are there any settings or themes, etc., that we would like to see? So I'm going to answer this a little bit. First, then I'm going to hand over to Carlos, and that's just to say, I don't at the moment have any Hammerseas one-off sessions planned, with the caveat that if I fail to finish my story in season 3, I might have a couple to tie it off. And the other caveat being that if I suddenly get inspired by an idea, I kind of reserve the right to throw that in.
Yeah.
But in a more general sense, we've really loved the success of the one-shots that we've run in this format. And historically, obviously, we ran one-shots as well. So we do have some plans on that. I'm going to throw you a little bit Carlos's way to see if he has anything to add to that.
Well, for the Blood on the Severn Chronicle, I think it's very, very handy to have had not only the first sort of introductory one with Lane, Peter, and Phil, but also to have the other 3 with the ghouls. I mean, I end up with a host of NPCs across time doing defining things. So the actions of those players down the line for the Memoriams, including, well, Blood on the Severn is going to start in 2012, so it's going to be even after the one shot Peter, Phil, and Lane played. Those actions will be already a part of Bristol, and they will be there in the description. Probably someone survived or not. It's not something that I'm going to reveal, but I do have some plans in the future to try and incorporate sort of flashbacks from a blast from the past, if you will, in a couple of things for the story of Blood on the Severn. The thing is that I have to be really careful because I want to have little flashbacks, probably not full-blown sessions, but discrete sessions that then are edited into one video as a little flashback of the ages, sort of explaining what has happened without giving too much away and not spoiling it for the ghouls. So it has to be really delicate. So I do have a plan for it. I have not figured out a way of making it interesting as well, because it has to be relevant and interesting. If my creative juices just run dry, then I'll probably do something like conjure it from like up my sleeve. But yes, there are plans to have a little bit more of the past of Bristol brought back to life.
Cool, thank you. So there was another question from Althane that kind of feels appropriate to talk about now. And you can all relax because this question is for me. And it is that is there anything in this season so far that I did not expect to happen? And how has that changed the trajectory of the story? And it's a really interesting question, because one of the things about, as anyone who's run games knows, that yes, as a storyteller, you have a kind of story in mind, or you have events and things that might happen. Then you introduce the players to that. And, the players might do things that change the course of the story, or they might not even care about the story. They might go somewhere else. And one of the things that's been quite fun for me is that there are various events that have been player-led at points. So one of the things was that there was an opportunity that came up back in season 1 when the players were still trying to prove themselves as worthy citizens of Oxfordshire, which kind of came up just through a series of things in play, really, and a little bit of ghoul intervention in the background, where a thing came up that there had been some trouble in between Kindred in Reading, Weston, who was stirring up some stuff about Drogo to the Camarilla, and players basically jumped on this and said, right, we're going to find this guy and we're going to take action and we're going to prove ourselves worthy. And it became it became the dominant focus of the end of season 1. And the actions of going into Reading to find this guy who was in hiding and then lead the Knights of Oxfordshire to his location because he was an elder shaped the rest of the game.
Yep.
But as a result of that, Reading then went and protested, and poor David got staked, which actually, in hindsight, was one of his better interactions with Oxfordshire.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think he appreciates the lesson.
Also, in the end of season 2, obviously, there's the duel between Drogo and Amargo. I didn't, as a storyteller, I didn't kind of push the players in any direction after that. It was the players who said, this is an outrage. We are going to hunt down this elder vampire and bring him to justice. And we're going to gather as many SPCs with us as we possibly can. And we're going to go and charge into another domain and kill him. So it's a hard question to answer in that sometimes I'll talk to the players between sessions and sort of say, so what's your character thinking of doing and things like that. So I have a kind of an idea of what might be coming my way. But these things are not in my plan at all. These are things that the players drive. And one of the things that I was very keen on, and Rich was keen on too, when we were kind of planning the game out, is creating a kind of a sandbox. We'll probably talk about this a bit more as well when the game finally finishes. But creating a sandbox where the players, within reason, can shift that. Because I like the fact in Vampire that there are many people who are just way scarier than you, and you have to be really careful. What I don't like is a game where, as a player, you feel like you have no agency. I wanted the players to have, providing they weren't, if they were clever about it, or if they were lucky about it, or if they were just willing to spend huge amounts of resources about it, they would be able to make change happen in the city. So yeah, to answer the question anyway, yeah, the players have had like massive impact on the story and taken it in completely different directions than maybe where we first thought. So
glad to be of help.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Our job is.
I have a nice question from a wonderful ghoul who has even come to see us in real life, which is a lovely thing. And that's Kirsty.
Hey.
Probably.
Okay, I was wondering which one because we've had more than one, but yeah. Hi, Kirsty.
And we very much like to have more. If you're ever in the little area, do let us know, and we will come and drink drinks with you and eat food with you and talk at you a lot until you cry.
Socially distance, of course.
Yeah.
Socially distance. Yeah, wearing masks, obviously, and washing our hands. But so yeah. Anyway, this is a question from Kirsty, and this is for the players, and it's which SPC. Well, no, it's not. Sorry, I'll take her words specifically. She put them here. Which character on the show does your character most look up to, and why? So a nice, wholesome question. Which character on the show, obviously that could be empirical mortal, could be player or SPC. Which character on the show does your character look up to the most, and why?
I would say for Theodore would be Sir William. He does look up to Isabel and Meliore, for sure. And but Sir William is, for Theodore, someone who has had the patience and the attention to slowly form some sort of connection through the interaction. The tea ceremony became ritual. Their conversations are always very formal, even though they have been interacting for over 10 years. Far more than what Theodore has seen him interact with other neonates. He's always respectful towards others, even when Theodore was not recognized as a citizen of Oxfordshire. So he sort of embodies, after a fashion, one of the convictions of Theodore, which is respect others and demand respect, but also the other conviction of I'm the lord of my castle. And even though he was not the prince, he was the child of the prince, a founding knight, and he was instrumental in many of the decisions. So he approaches very much at least two of the convictions, and also disobedience is dishonor. I think that's the reason that he sort of behaves in a way that is it goes parallel to all Theodore's convictions, despite everything, despite being an elder, which Theodore knows that elders can be whimsical or flighty, in their trains of thoughts. So I would say Sir William. He is like a good representation of the things that Theodore holds dear. This like obedience, respect, and being the lord of your own place.
Cool. What about the two of you? What do you think?
I think it's a tough question, but it's probably it's not probably. It's definitely Theo. For Velvet, he's a character who is so Velvet's a character who doesn't have a good or solid relationship with his family, or particularly with his father, and who is kind of missing that. But then also, I think it's mainly his interactions with Theo that have helped him adjust to the world that he lives in, and also to begin making this transition from a life where he just expects to be given things, or he expects to achieve things without any kind of effort, and isn't really used to having to take accountability for his actions, or behave often in any kind of reasonable way. But that feels to me like it's a door that Theodore opened, and has then been able to kind of help him and mentor him, and kind of and I think he feels to me now like if Theodore's disappointment is like the worst thing that could happen to him, right? It's like I don't mind. I could be nearly killed by Wallace. I can be clogged over the head by Sir Enolf. But if Theodore's disappointed in me, then I can't carry on, right? Like that's okay. So that's it for him.
Cool, thank you. What about you, Phil? Which character does Silas most look up to?
I've got to admit, this again. Think of this. For Silas, it's Theodore as well, because again, for same reason. Theodore, for when Silas has been issues, and for the whole because before everything, he was that guy. He was that guy who'd act through all the parts again. He getting very good in his skills, but then having to change them from acting, deliberately missing and not making contact, to actually delivering the blows and having to engage things and do all the other things that it needs to do. But again, Theodore as well has been the one there guiding with how to do that. It's just been a thing where when Silas discovered that Theodore is as old as he is, so it's like that was the moment Silas was thinking of what, and then just think other conversations happening, and Silas really does look up to Theodore a lot, and Silas has never been ambitious enough to really take the center stage. Is one thing that really held him back from his career. He'll help others reach the limelight, but for him himself reaching it, he's never been that he has never had that confidence to make it there.
That little push, which Theo does, and again, that's recognized. And
what a wholesome set of answers that you've given.
So particularly for vampires.
See, now I feel bad for not saying that I also admire Theodore.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was a close run thing, because I was going to go with Wallace, but I thought that would be.
Didn't think Wallace would be most fun. he's inspired you to murder him, and that's an important thing. I suspect if Lane were with us this evening, that Joanne would not be saying Theodore, but who knows? Who knows?
No, definitely not.
Hell no.
No, hell no.
Now, obviously, one should never.
I'll take for 100%. I'll take the 100%.
Yeah, you're okay. I think most of us would definitely be in the high 90s, I reckon, for that. Obviously, we shouldn't have favorites, but I have a favorite question, I think. And this question is from Serpentine. I'm going to just read it as it's written. The wonderful Peter I admire so much.
I really love this question.
Anyway, the question's great. I mean, how do you make SPCs like Neonate and Ancilla without them feeling overpowered? Because it's a thing about balance. And I'm glad that you asked this question, because like many, many things in this world, especially imaginary things, I have strong opinions about it. And because I do think it can feel like an issue sometimes where in Vampire, it's in the setting that often you will be dealing with characters that are decades, if not hundreds of years older than you, that will have terrifying powers that can just command your character at a word, or can rip your character's head off if they lose their temper in a heartbeat. Part of that fear and that kind of difficulty of dealing with those characters is at the core of the game. At the same time, you know, you want the players to feel like they can do something. I have two kind of thoughts about this, or two answers to this question. One thing I would say is that I think V5 does a good job of shrinking slightly the difference in power between Neonates, Ancilla, and Elder than they were in previous editions. And if you're creating an Ancilla and you've built them from I would say when you're creating those SPCs, don't create them as Elders or as Ancilla. Create them as a human, and say, okay, let's imagine now they're going to being a Neonate, so I'm going to spend some XP there, and then they're going to go into being an Ancilla, so they're going to spend some more XP there, and then I'm going to go to Elder. And one of the other things to think about is that vampires do not spend all of their time raising their disciplines.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you think, like, when you first become a vampire and your life changes radically, you probably have to pick up some new skills. Most likely. Like, you might have to pick up some subterfuge if you're not used to lying to people.
Breaking into your family home.
Yeah. You might have to pick up...
Brawl for grappling, for feeding.
Yeah.
Or persuasion.
You may need... Yeah, it might need persuasion. You might need to get some stealth. There's all kinds of avenues you might have to start delving into. You might suddenly have to learn about politics if you're involved in the Camarilla. Yeah, there are loads of things where your character might kind of spread outwards. The other thing, of course, is that when you have immortal sires who expect the best of you, your character may also have to work on their deficiencies. If your character has always been physically weak to a serious detriment, depending on your sire, they may not think that's acceptable. You may have to develop aspects of yourself to fit into that world. Actually, when you start spending XP in that way, often you end up with a much more rounded SPC, but also one that is much less powerful. Sometimes the thing can feel like, oh, I don't know, I'm creating a Ventru, say. Oh, well, they're an Ancilla or an Elder Ventru, so that means they must have ludicrous amounts of dominate, they must have ludicrous amounts of manipulation, they must have ludicrous... You know, and if you do that, what you end up with is lots of Ventru Elders who are very similar and all monstrously powerful at about 3 different things, and not very good at anything else. Of course, people just don't work that way. And those of us who've been in lockdown, the majority of us have not said, oh, I've had all this extra time. I'm going to learn 7 languages and 3 instruments, and I'm also going to pick up a new sport. You know, most of us have kind of, you know, we've used that time, but maybe not super efficiently. And I like to think that Elders are just like us, if not worse, from that point of view. They do not spend every minute of their 1,000 years of unlife learning new things. But if anything, they probably forget a lot of stuff. The things they did learn become less relevant. And they bemoan the fact that it is less relevant and try and get everyone to use the old means rather than the new one, you know. And that kind of leads me on to my second point, which is we often see people, I mean, not everybody, because some people are exceptional and they're great and, you know, more power to them. But many people who, if you like, lived their childhood and early adult lives and beyond without the internet or computers often struggle with those new technologies, particularly ones that have developed very quickly. And if you imagine that if you're an elder and you were around in a time maybe weren't even printing presses, now you're in a world where people can pluck information out of the air seemingly onto their phones, have cameras, can communicate, can be tracked. All of these things are just so outside your world of experience. Actually, probably as an elder, interacting with the world can become very scary. Certainly in Oxfordshire, a majority of the elders do not interact with the world anymore. They interact with ancilla and neonates who interact with the world on their behalf, or ghouls. And they're not aware of these things, you know. Also, if you grew up hundreds and hundreds of years ago and you suddenly go out into a city now, it's like fully lit and cars and noise and the numbers of people, I think that is also kind of terrifying potentially. So if you're looking for ways to depower your elders, think about the fact that they're going to be useless in the modern world in many fronts. Also think about the fact that humanity is probably low. What that most likely means is they only care about certain things. Those things they might care about a lot, but they're not going to care about many other things, which means a lot of stuff's going to pass them by. And also that they can get very single-minded, and they can also be a little bit like children when they don't get what they want. They're less able to resist the beast. One of the great things is, one of the triggers for fury frenzy is if you're insulted by an inferior. And when you're an elder, nearly everyone is your inferior.
Yeah.
And if you're an elder with low humanity, especially if you're a brooder, your chance of resisting fury frenzy is very low. And that means that, well, yes, this can be bad for the people that are subject to your frenzy. It also means you can very easily blow the masquerade, and you can very easily get hunted down by the Inquisition. So elders have weaknesses and they can be exploited. So I would say, you know, if you think of them like very powerful toddler pensioners, rather than kind of all-seeing, all-knowing, omniscient beings of power, then it should become more balanced. I sense people want to jump in, so do jump in.
I think I pretty much agree with everything you said. One of the things I was going to add, though, which is that I think as a player, one of the things that I quite enjoy, not just about this game, but about other vampire games that I've played in that have larger numbers of elders, is that if you're the neonate character, there is something about the process of learning how to communicate with the elder. Basically, what is the path of eggshells that I have to walk around to be able to build a relationship with this person? And that is something about the play experience. So that actually that almost, for me, their stats are kind of irrelevant. It's much more about, well, so why are they still here? Why are they still awake in this time? What is it they think they're getting out of life? And how do the player characters' goals fit into that? And how do they, you know, and how can, because it might be that they don't at all, but in which case, then it should be clear to the players quite quickly, this is not a person that you probably want to spend a lot of time interacting with. But actually, I think the elders in Tamases have, you know, the ones that each of the characters have picked up with have felt very different, and they felt like they have very different motivations, and actually they come across very differently. And actually, there's a reverse of that, I think, because although Wallace is not an elder, he is a character who Velvet knows how to push his buttons, and that can work to his advantage or not. Yeah. And so, but in and of itself, that's a thing. That's a thing. That's an experience of playing, of figuring that out. So that was just my only point.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think what you were saying about how they're different from previous editions. Yes, the gap is closer between like an elder and ancilla and a neonate, but there's still, given the system, still an interesting power gap, because
yes, yeah.
It used to be in older editions, you know, that if you were lower generation, so smaller number, closer to Cain or whatever, then you were by definition more powerful. You would have more blood. I don't know. You could magically store more blood in your body that, you know.
You automatically deflect things. So you automatically deflect, dominate if you're older. For example,
if you not older, if you're lower generation.
Yes.
And the vast majority of elders were defined by people with very strong blood, because he's like the fourth, fifth generation kindred of whatever. Right now, I think blood potency is the great equalizer, because you can be a 12th generation kindred with blood potency 3. That'll make you more powerful than someone that is blood potency 1, for example. And some elders are like 9th or 10th generation, but they have good enough blood potency that helps them with that. They don't have to have monstrous disciplines, because I think the question, I'm trying to go back to reel it back to Serpentine's question of how did you balance it. Sometimes you can have perfectly, like, I don't know, a Toreador elder who does not have presence 5 and Auspex 5 and Celerity 5. You can just have someone that has however much they feel appropriate they needed to learn, and then I don't know, I think in the book says 1 dot of blood potency for every 100 years they've been alive, up to their generation maximum.
Not spend all the points, right? You don't have to build them on the point base, right?
It's true.
Oh no. What I'm saying, like stats base, I don't build elders with points. I can build Ancilla, but elders, I do what Peter says. I just say this is going to be a guy this is the range of blood potency that he's going to have, and these are sort of the powers I want him to have on the disciplines that he will have. But these are the skills that he has learned. And if someone has technology artillery, because they were embraced in the Napoleonic Wars, which is completely useless today unless you're in a team that does like ancient cannon shots and reenactments. And they will have it at 4 because they were on artillery. It's great. He will have the knowledge, but then that already tells you that for them, that's technology. Gunpowder in a way that you can light some of it up and then blow other people and not yourself. That is technology for them. Steam power, which was one of the interesting concepts of the characters that we had. Technology, steam power. So once you see the world through the eyes of the elder that way, with those skills, drive instead of ride, or archery instead of firearms, you start understanding, like for some of them, things like finance is more like senescal. So they were serving other people. Then that paints that elder in the way you're going to play them. And if you absolutely must stat them because your characters want to face them head on, and they have not done their due diligence in finding out their weaknesses, don't be afraid. Throw many dice and wreck them.
Yeah.
Because you should not be able to take an elder without exploiting their weaknesses. That's simple. They have them, and they are monumental. Just exploit them.
Yes. The other thing I'd say on the blood potency front is that, of course, if someone goes into torpor, their blood potency can go down
drops
over time as well. So you can have elders that will still potentially have the powers and the skills and the knowledge, but their blood potency might actually be quite low if they've recently gone into torpor. Because, of course, one of the things about blood potency is it gets harder and harder to feed effectively. So unless you have a machine that's helping you to feed, like in Oxfordshire, then you tend to have to, you get to a point where it's just very difficult on your own. You have to sleep. Okay, so something I wanted to talk about was we're at the mid-season break, and because I'm a benevolent and loving storyteller, I'm giving the players their XP for the whole of season 3, i.e. the second half of season 3, to spend up front, so they can enjoy that XP over the last half of the season. And that kind of leads me into a little bit. We've talked about from the player's point of view where they think the season might be going, but I also just wanted to ask the players about what they're going to try and do, what their ambitions are for the last half of season 3. What are their plans and schemes as we move into this last section?
Plans and schemes of Theodore?
Yeah.
Well, not schemes, but definitely plans. He would definitely.
I like the fact you separate them.
I have schemes.
Yeah. Well, because Theodore is Theodore. So I think, depending on what happens next, like he will try to figure out what happened to Meliora, but depending on what happens next, I think he's going to make it his priority to sort out the situation in Oxfordshire. It might sound very noble, but there is one driver there that is slightly selfish of him, and it's because he wants to go back to the calm and stable state, steady state, in which he can have again that conversation with Velvet and with Isabel, and I think somebody else. I think Adam was potentially mentioned, so he could take Miyuki off of the blood bond and have the conversation that it is now getting overdue, because they agreed that having it sort of once every 10 years, and have that conversation with Miyuki. He really desperately wants that, but now he's gaining a little bit more status. His name is being mentioned. He's getting a little bit of leeway and pull with Ancilla and some elders. So he might use that to his advantage, as in trying to see how, if at all possible, is for the Kindred of Oxfordshire to accept him, Isabel, and Meliore when we rescue her as La Sombra, and instead of Ventru. So I think there are potentially, if that is the course of action, there's probably a very interesting scene to play out with Velvet when they have this sort of exchange. That's what he plans on doing. Like, no longer he wants to be a titled member of Oxfordshire. He wants a steady Oxfordshire in which he can easily go back to the way things were, gaining the recognition of his blood and having a conversation with the love of his life. So he wants what we all want, to be happy.
All right. What about you, Phil? What is Silas planning to do the last half of season 3?
It's a good chunk of the XP has been spent. I will say that now has definitely been spent. Yeah,
like a good player. All players spend their XP quickly.
Yes, and Silas is going to be, because reconnecting with an old friend. He's been a realization of, I fucked up there. I got to fix this one. I got to do it in the quiet. How do I do this? So that's a plan there. But as well as he's realizing just how fractured Oxfordshire is at this point, and with having found out that Wallace, seemingly from what Velvet has told him, was making an attempt to take Sir Ranulph. So other elders were set up to fall. He's going to be trying to find out what's happened with his bloodline, because lastly, sort of Finn and so Kurstag, they were in terror frenzy. To be fair, understandable, absolutely fucking understandable.
It's not unreasonable when you're on fire.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. No. I mean, it was. I mean, I it was so expected that had she not frenzied, the tale of the burning grandma would have been the epic of bravery that I would have forever told. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So it reminded me of a thing. We were talking earlier about the difference between streaming and playing at home. And one of the things that I'm very mindful of on the stream is that, a role-playing game, when you get into combat, particularly if you're not the players involved in that combat, can be like the slowest computer game in the world. When you're different combat things. So Mitch and I often, if we know things are coming up, we can't pre-roll everything because we don't know what the players are going to do. But there are certain things where we'll be like, what are the likely scenarios in this situation? Who might face this character? What if they do that? So that even if it's just a case of me saying, well, I know this character is going to try and do this thing. I don't know who they're going to do it on, but I know they're going to do it. Then I will pre-roll that action so that when we come to it in session, I'm not sitting going, right, now my 20 SPCs will all roll their dice and I will count them all up and work out what they do, because we want to keep the flow going. But it popped it into my head because of something that you were saying just now. It's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, so Silas is going for the whole making sure Oxford is stable, because in honesty, he has thoroughly enjoyed the whole exercise of hiding at least 2 or 3 weapons in every single fucking room of the Coterie mansion.
Yeah, we're aware of your weapon fetish. Yeah.
Oh, Hassas is all on it. It was
Theodore is super happy with that. Like the fact that he knows at any point in his house that he can use something that is a weapon as a weapon instead of trying to improvise shit.
I mean, I would say I've got an idea of where Hassas probably hidden a halberd as well, just because I think of because you can. And just because I can hide a fucking
in my head, I've like opened the wardrobe and a fucking pike has fallen out or something.
You imagine him going through a book of old Japanese weapons as I go, oh, what is this? So they got on me. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna build it so Theodore can use it. Like, dude, that is something that no one ever uses anymore. No one uses a kimono here. Why do you need a leaf angler? You know?
Where do I hide it?
How do I make it? Where do I hide it? Silence priorities. I love that.
From Velvet's perspective, what are his plans for the last party?
Refill the whiskey cabinet because people keep drinking that shit.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, right. But actually, so he needs to have a chat with his cool dad bro. Yeah. Because life is tough. But I think that he's got a few kind of there's something around Adam and this blood bond. So he's got some different views about that, which I think will come along at some point. Then there's something about his son. So he and Theodore had a conversation about that a bit back, and obviously he got some advice he didn't like very much. So he's responded appropriately and forgotten about it. But that needs to kind of come back round. Obviously he needs to pay somebody to go to Sir Enolf and see if Wallace is dead. He needs to do something about figuring that out. So I think in terms of the last 5 episodes, that feels like that kind of ties everything up. I think if Theodore wants to go out on a bit of a mission to sort out Meliori, then obviously he'll offer his considerable physicality to that.
Yeah.
Because we've got XP now, right? So yeah.
Your bro won.
Yeah.
To go with your strength one.
I bought 1 in Brawl, so I've doubled my dice pool.
Nice.
Yes.
If you rouse, you'll triple it.
The last time they faced you, that's impressive.
Yeah, I figure you can only get hit so much before your Brawl has to go up, right? Especially if it's got a starting bose of 0. Right?
Yeah,
exactly like we were saying earlier.
Yes. So that's plans. It's difficult to convey plans without actually giving away the plan.
Yeah,
right? But yeah,
That's fine. So there was a question from Len, which was for me, which we've sort of partly answered, which was how much of the storyline do you improvise based on what the decisions the characters make or have made? Which is to say, the way that I work is that I know what the SPCs are doing, and so I know what some of the kind of global events are going to be. I know how they might react to things, but actually the players are the ones that decide the story, and they're ultimately the protagonists of the story because we follow them. We don't follow anyone else. So it very much is led by them, as we sort of alluded to before. The other question that she put was how do you remember all the NPCs, character traits, and voices? And I guess I would say partly that's because it's my superpower, and that sometimes I don't. Like that, or at least sometimes, come to an SPC and I start to talk in their voice, and some bit of my brain is saying this is not quite right. It can be difficult sometimes to work out exactly why it's not right. I do my best.
Yeah, but sometimes you remember in advance, because I remember there was a chord in which I think someone was talking to Maurice or something like that, and then I sort of mentioned that I wanted to talk to Enof, and you was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna jump from a French accent to a German accent to a Scots accent," and it was like you were already like figuring it out, but then I just chose to just do nothing.
Troll.
That was
Oh,
it was a little trolling. No, but I have to say, Peter, like you and Mitch have done an amazing job at like creating
absolutely.
the atmosphere and the story itself. And what you were mentioning to the about the dice rolling in advance is something that I am definitely going to steal for Blood on the Severn, because I think it's very doable. As you said, global events are easy to determine. And that allows for all the focus to go into the narrative, which I think it was, for example, the battle versus Amago and the one with Wallace both used the 1, 2, 3 out, 3 rounds. It's done. So much happens, but most of it is descriptive, and it has meaning. It feels better than you hit him, you get this much damage. Now you hit him and he gets that much damage, and now he uses this discipline, and now you're hungry and he dies. Like, that's not very satisfactory, especially because in real life, even kindred don't go to combat every day. So when you go and fight someone who is worthy of rolling dice for a fight, because otherwise he's a mortal, and we have seen that mortals sadly are no match for kindred.
I think I'd probably have to still roll dice.
You're probably
Velvet might be all right.
maybe for the first round, but then you can use any of your any and all of your presence and destroy them. That's the thing; they're no match. But if you're gonna do combat, make it meaningful, because if you are gonna have actual interaction, physical interaction with another one violently, it has to be for a reason. Kindred are not stupid; they're not out looking for blood.
Yeah, I think
they're not murder hobos. That's what I'm trying to say.
Where possible, I like, it's not always possible, but I kind of like combats as well, where you zero on in like the key decisions a player has to make. Like maybe they're in a terrible situation, and where do they turn their attention? Which target do they take on, or which person do they rescue, or which of their kind of convictions do they choose to honor in that fight? And those things I think make it kind of interesting. So I'm aware that there are still a few more questions, and if people have asked them, I feel a sort of moral duty to make sure that you hear them, unless we've already kind of covered them in other questions, because there is some crossover. But there's a question that I like, because it's quite a wholesome question. It's similar, but it's key different to an earlier question, which is from Len. Which NPC of the current season do you relate to the most on a personal level?
NPC current season relate the most
on a personal level. Which do you as people, which SBCs of the current season do you relate to? I think that's a good fun question. You can say none, because I'm not a monster if you want.
Yeah. Now I think I'm thinking of all the NPCs that are mortal. Because mortal,
it could be mortal.
Because if I do not relate on a personal level with any of the kindred on the current season with because this time of the stress has made a lot of things surface that no one had seen before.
Yeah.
If I had to say, if I were in that situation, I would say Sergan Suk. It's like, oh, this is too much. I get the fuck out of here. Yeah. I mean, I already did it in one country, so why not do it again whenever things get, whenever the push comes to shove? It's like, I already immigrated once. This is nothing. So long, bitches. It's that kind of thing. But if it has to be a mortal,
it doesn't have to be.
If it has to be relate to an SPC on a personal level, I will say Eugene. Because Eugene has to put up with Seth. And
I should add. Oh, sorry. Go on. I'll jump in a minute. Sorry, I got excited.
It's okay. And then for those of you who don't know, I am a project manager, and on a daily basis, I have to Eugene other people, wrangle them, herding cats in a manner that is, I mean, even Peter, he has his day sometimes. No, I'm joking, of course. I'm not. But
I do have my days sometimes. They're normally on a Monday, actually.
No, but yeah,
when I need a bit of management.
I would say poor Eugene, because you're stuck in a situation in which you must deal with this. You cannot just let it out, because I enjoy getting paid for my job so I can eat and pay rent. So yeah, I have to put up with it. So Eugene, poor old Eugene.
Cool. And the thing I got excited about was just to say, if you want to know a bit more about Eugene and his origins, you should watch the
Go
Memoriams.
check the Memoriams.
Very exciting. So yes, over to the other two.
So I'm going to choose Adam, whose response to everything that's happened in this has been the same of unbridled terror, has been the same kind of response I would have had.
Like,
So I just placed myself into this. Like, it's an entirely appropriate response, and you should run for the hills. Yeah,
It's a permanent WTF coming from Adam. Poor man. I thought about it.
Why am I still here? What's going on? That's kind of what I feel.
Yeah, that is very fair. What about you, Phil?
I mean, this is hard, but I'm there going. Well, I can relate. Well, I've certainly related to before was a certain messenger.
Oh, David.
Oh, David.
Like, I was just doing my job.
You just fuck me over. Why? I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah. Don't shoot the messenger. It's not a memo that Oxfordshire got.
No, they did not get that memo.
Or don't shoot the guardian of the border in the head, Seth. He's not like he's supposed to be patrolling. He's like, what are you doing here? Poor guy. Yes, that's another NPC.
Hard to understate my love for Seth.
All right, let's see. Now, I do have some more questions from Selinen, I think is how you pronounce it, but I'm sure the ghostly voice of Mitch might tell me if I'm wrong in the future. Anyway, some questions. And these questions are for Bex specifically. Prepare yourself. Question 1, what was Velvet's upbringing like? And what kind of relationship did he have with his parents?
How many hours have we got?
I mean, I think it's probably the Reader's Digest version rather than the epic.
So I should say this is a character that I've played a number of times. So he has a very well established backstory, but actually, in the short summary of his story is that he gets on very well with his mother, or got on very well with her, obviously when he was alive. And he's very close to her. Her name is Martha. His father's name is Charles. And they have a very estranged relationship. So in his backstory, Charles Riley doesn't call Velvet. He calls him Charles, which is his second name. Velvet's the name his mother chose for him. And his father hates it. So he just doesn't engage with that part of his life. So he has this kind of link to his family via his mother that he wants to keep up, but he hasn't really got the time of day for his father, which is obviously one of the drivers of his relationship with his with Theo, or or how he sees that relationship. And of course he's supposed to be the kind of the inheritor of the family business. He's supposed to be married and have a child, and obviously we already know how well that's worked out for him. So yeah, is that short enough?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And it also leads on to the next question, which is, if Velvet hadn't become a vampire,
yep,
he still have left Jessica.
What, having met Adam?
I assume so, yeah.
So I think if where we found him in the prelude, I think he might not have done, because I think he lacks that kind of courage, right? Or he does at that point in his timeline. Also, he doesn't know that Adam's a vampire at that point in time. Yeah, I would like to think that if kind of time had moved on, he would have made a better decision than that. But actually, he's not a character that makes good decisions. I don't think, or at least not at that point in his life.
They're usually impassionate decisions.
Well, he also he's got a. I mean, I think one of the things that might come in more if there's a conversation with Theodore in the future is that he is not So ultimately, he likes the money that his family have. If he leaves his wife and he goes off with Adam, that's disappearing from him. So he's a kind of a lack of self-efficacy, I guess, at that point about not taking that decision. That actually he's maybe more realizing now than he had before that actually a lot of things in his life would have been better if he had just been honest with himself about this from the outset of his life and just said, "So I don't care about this money. I'm going to go and be who I want to be." So that, yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. So we're moving towards the end. There is a question that I would like to ask you. There is another question from our wonderful ghouls that I'll come to at the very end, and kind of sandwiched between that, and this is me just giving Carlos a heads up. I might give you a quick slot if you want to talk about the future at all. Future. But the question that I wanted to ask you was to do with story votes that we have. So we do a thing for our supporters where they can vote on things that will influence the impact of the story. And sometimes those are specifically around one player. Sometimes they are around an SPC. Sometimes they're around a major event. They vary from time to time. My question to you, players, is there a story vote you would like to see?
Yes.
Tell me.
The return of Meliore triumphantly making all La Sombra accepted.
Well, the thing is, it's
without Theo doing nothing.
So that is an option in a vote. All right. So if the vote is what is the fate of Meliore and the La Sombra, then one of the options is everything's great and Theodore doesn't have to lift a finger. But then there will also be 2 to 3 or 4 other options.
Okay. I'll give you a vote. Which of these triumphant returns would you rather have? Chester as representative of all Toreador?
Motherfucker.
Thank you. Meliore bringing glory to the La Sombra?
Mm-hmm.
Or, I'm not going to put Hugh because Hugh's going to win. And Bam for Prince is it's so common that it's going to be a meme. Wallace and his evil twin part 2. The return of the Benoit. No, because that involves Seth.
Just Wallace. Can always involve Seth.
No, just Wallace. Wallace. Triumphant return. Wallace as Prince. As Prince. Chester as Knight of Oxfordshire, or Meliore just making the La Sombra accepted.
Okay.
They're going to vote for Wallace. I know that.
Outcry of yes, we absolutely want this vote. Mitch and I will take it under consideration. We might add a 4th option and we'll put it up for the future. Now, I don't know though. It might be an even more exciting vote suggested by Bex or Phil. Who knows? So are there any story votes you would like to see?
I only have things that are like 2 choice items.
It's fine. We've got extra choices. Don't you worry about that. You just tell us the vote.
So my vote is: should Velvet break his bloodborne with Adam?
Should Velvet? So the options could be
yes, but only a little.
Yes, or no, or you should drink much more than you've drunk.
Exactly. The bloodborne should be reduced. The bloodborne should be raised. The bloodborne should be cut off entirely. The bloodborne should be one way.
Yes.
Lots of interesting options there. So good. So again, if you're going along and you'd like this to be a vote, let us know. Mitch and I are always persuadable, especially for bits or chocolate. And what about you, Phil? Any thoughts of a vote you would like to see?
Different things just fascinating. Like it. Let's try and narrow down.
Well, thinking if Lane, we're watching along with this at any point, and you're like, but I wanted to suggest a story vote. It's never too late. We can always throw it into the Discord and see what people make of it. So yeah, anyway,
I'm thinking it's a for a friend of it, and what well, that's been related to previous.
You can say no. I don't want a story vote. It's fine. You can say I want the ghouls to decide. the next story vote.
Don't do that,
I mean, they probably
Phil.
would quite
Let
like
me
to
tell
do.
you something.
I know
Nine-
full well that's
Phil.
a bad
Is
idea.
it should Phil be killed by Jim Roy Woods, or should Silas be killed by
Silas.
Jim Roy Woods?
I think that Silas is going to win in a fight with Jim Roy Woods.
Well, there we go. We need to see
He's
the
fine.
fight, right?
I mean, we could play that out.
I would say as well, if we leave it entirely up to chat to suggest a vote, the odds of flying dolphins and sentient soap and like walking cheese get like very high. So
I mean,
be
what
careful what you wish for.
what I would like to see with that is what Soap's fate is. Is it she is?
Yeah.
Is it
we
she is
could
murdered?
Put it in the hands of Chad.
Is
No,
it,
no,
is
no.
What her face
No.
used to be before I took her to Sir Ranulph.
too late? Too late. Is it she is killed by herself, or is it her elf forced her to kill her side? Does Sir Elf force her side to kill her? Does
There are many kill options. There are many horrible options there.
Does Sir Elf just let her go?
Does Sir Enolf just adopt her? Does he let her go?
Or does he psychologically break her into his
Yeah, exactly. Does he do horrible things?
That's fine.
I mean, the options are limitless. So yeah, we could do a
the problem is
to soap vote. We could.
Chad is infamous. Chad is infamous for 9 out of 10 times coming up with a solution for a vote and going like, yes, it's gonna show up. Oh, God, and that's their reaction. They are masochistic that way.
I do like that. That was brilliant.
And with that, I know full well what Chad does because Chad, me, and water. You know what you did.
Yes.
Not
you know what you did.
They all know what they did, and I think they have no regret.
No, they don't. They absolutely don't. That was fucking hilarious.
All right, so we've mentioned that this is obviously the last season of Tamases, but of course, it's not the end of vampire storytelling from us because that would just be too much. Even I might cry at that. So there is going to be a future, and to talk about that, possibly, if he wants to say anything, I'm just going to briefly open the door to Carlos.
Yeah, well, the plans for the future after Blood on the Tamases, as most of you should know by now, is Blood on the Severn. So we are trying to do some things differently, but it's still going to be a vampire, V5 game. And when I say we're trying to do things differently, is as a group and as content creators, and of course we're changing and putting me at the storyteller's chair. And I don't have the range of accents and voices that Peter does, unless you are willing to listen to at least 10 different accents of Spanish when I speak Spanish, which I
am.
I'm definitely am, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not.
I think Chat would vote. Yeah.
Yeah, but then it would not. It wouldn't be like Blood on the Severn. It would be like Blood in the Iguazu Falls or something like that. The border with Paraguay and Argentina. So I can do both accents and tell you how different they are, even though you cannot hear the difference. Or Uruguayan or Argentina, which are a lot closer. But that's beyond the point. I think I'll just hold on to my own strengths. Strength. I think I used the plural there, but that doesn't matter. And I am really excited. Dylan and I have been working on new ideas productions wise. I've been working very hard with Sam Canto. He's been helping me flesh out Blood on this, like Bristol, even more ever since the first one shot. I think it's going to be very, very interesting. It's going to bring very, very well-known characters from the Memoriams as well, from the historical one-shots, and this is going to be a chronicle in which the story of the city has been written by, in a good part, by the ghouls. So that I want that feeling. Like, I want people to feel that the vampiric version of Bristol that we've come up with is also yours. So we're going to be engaging with you as usual.
Also reminds me actually of I think right at the beginning we were talking about the difference between kind of role playing, just at home and role playing on the stream. And for Tamases, and obviously the same is true for Seven, the storytellers, we've had the benefit of a second storyteller, kind of background storyteller, who
Very
is
important.
negotiating and talking with us around the stories, the plots, the things like that. I know that Mitch and I will probably do something when Tamases is done, where we talk a bit more about that process and what it was like. While we're here in this moment, I often mention that Mitch has been involved in things, but he does a lot of work behind the scenes on the story. And I know that sort of Sam does a similar role for you, Carlos, where both in the kind of the construction of everything, but also in the kind of the week to week storytelling and decisions. And that is a luxury I've never had as a storyteller before.
Now I don't want to stop it anymore. Like, I mean, bouncing ideas off of Sam or him coming back and say, hey, look at this. How does it look like? Wow. Okay, let's talk about this and have that chat, that interaction. That is
it is so good. It is so great.
I'm really thankful to have them.
And so, as I often do, but I'll repeat now, I am very grateful to everything Mitch has done, and will continue to do, because he's not off the hook yet. But yeah, it's a big difference though, and it's one that I love. I think it's great. And something I would say to you is, if you're in a situation where, because of lockdown or because of other things, you can't get to a gaming group, you have a good friend who's running the game, you could potentially step in as that role, as a thing to do, because it's a lot of fun. I hope Mitch may actually be in chat now being like, never do it, it's the worst. It's so
I'll have to ask Sam, but he seems to be enjoying it, and he's really involved in it because he's also creating the stories and the city, so it's really cool.
So yes, there are fun things going on in the future, and we're always, there are things that change because the storytellers change, and different storytellers are good at different things, whether that is kind of intense scenes or horrific descriptions, or whether it's in, different voices or pacing or things like that. We'll do that, but at the same time, we're also trying to take as many of the good bits from what we've done before and the lessons that we've learned and trying to evolve. And that's certainly something that Carlos and I talk a lot about things that we're learning and things that we might do differently in the future, which again may form it, one of these chats at some point. So as we come to an end, I do have a last question I would like to put to you. This is a nice question. Let's finish on nice questions.
Yes.
This question is from Izzy, who, as I'm sure you all know, played in one of the Memoriams, and apparently has a fondness for certain bearded bakers, I'm given to understand. And what she would like to know is, what for you has been either the funniest or your favorite moment of the series so far?
Funniest. There have been several funny ones.
Funniest or favorite, your choice. Or both.
My favorite.
Funniest or favorite?
Ooh. Of the season or of the series completely? Like the whole.
Hang on, let me double check the small print.
Yeah, please.
Series.
Easy.
Cool, but I think if you want to jump to season 3, as we've been very season 3 focused, you're more than welcome to do that. But there are, but if any moment really.
I can go if people want. Want time to think.
You go, Beck.
So actually, my favorite moment was the last part of the last episode in series 3, where I played a scene with Carlos, which was for me kind of defined everything that I enjoy about role playing. And why I mention it is partly because it answers the question, but also because in my experience, you can't have that kind of a scene with that sort of emotion if you don't have a really good quality player on the other side of it to throw things off of. And Carlos is that. He's brilliant. And so I know when I'm sitting here that whatever I give to him in the scene, he is going to give me something interesting back. And it makes that experience unbelievably rewarding. So that's my favorite moment. And thank you.
Now I'm blushing and I'm going to feel like a dick when I say the funniest moment is
Velvet died.
Gansuk's horse. No, when Gansuk's horse took Silence to the edge of town and he almost fried under the sun. That horse was epic. I
Any
feel like a little bit
moment
of a
with
dick
Phil and
after
an
being
animal.
praised.
Any moment.
No. Thank you, Bex. I think those. I think the interactions between like the player characters have been like really nice. Like conversations, like the little heart to hearts with Silas, Joanne, Velvet, and Theodore. Some have been more emotionally charged than others, but there's always something there, and I'm really glad to have you as my venture brother slash
Am I ever
your
going to find
brother.
out that we're not brothers? I'm going to be
Well,
devastated.
maybe.
We're gonna be better than brothers. We're gonna be like a Theodore will spin some bullshit around it. Don't worry about it.
Only one of
There's
us
no
survived
way you'll
this.
beat me in a bullshit contest, just so you know.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's my only skill.
He'll try.
Yeah.
No, but
So what
yes.
about you, Phil? What is your funniest or favorite moment?
Honestly, fun. I got one for each to us. Funniest has to be Seth. Yeah, I'm not W yet, motherfucker. That was fucking. Oh
or
my
pretty
God.
much any Seth scene.
Any Seth, yeah.
Still called it. But,
Yeah, I think Gansuk, Seth, Gansuk and Seth have been
amazing.
endless.
But
wells of fun.
I think one of my favorite scenes really was a scene between Theodore and Velvet, where shortly after Velvet had discovered that someone was looking at tattoos and had gone to speak to Theodore.
How very dare you get a tattoo?
That entire thing. Again, I think it's been very much a overbearing parent. You will not do this because I do not think it's right. But then Theodore responding with the don't watch over, protect him from distance, but let him make those mistakes because then he learns.
You're not supposed to agree with me.
And then he learn and grow. And just the whole development there is they going that can hit the feels. Just knowing that some people can just be that overbearing and trying, where they just need to let go and just let the what they created flourish and grow. Even when some things are going to just catch it, there you go.
Yeah, I think that there's also an amazing element of that conversation in which Velvet was stupidly uncomfortable at shirtless Theo and Miyuki shirtless, giving like showing her back while in front of Theo. Also,
gonna show me.
Is this like a weird Asian thing I have not heard of yet? That was super fun. In the middle of a very serious conversation, and for Theodore it was serious, but for Velvet it was so uncomfortable. I think it was.
And again, for me again, as well, again, compared to all these guys, I'm still the baby at all this. I am still trying to learn and absorb as much as I can. And again, I'm around so many incredible people. I'm learning a lot, and I'm trying to get earlier. But these are all incredible people, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this. This is incredible.
Oh,
don't worry, Phil. Thank you very much. Also, you're 11 in love. You're getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I wanted to say kind of on that front, because I've also got, as a storyteller, maybe there are different things that are my favorite things, perhaps to from a player experience. And so there are often things where the players rise to challenges that are put before them. So I really enjoy any scenes where the players are interacting with each other. And I think there have been a number of really standout kind of Velvet and Theodore scenes, and you've kind of given good examples of those. There's also one of the more recent scenes that I liked a lot was the Silas incites the Bruyere scene. Because
the speech, that was a good one.
Yeah, because for me it was a double whammy of Silas as a character has not been a leader. He is an actor who has been kind of fumbling his way through, and this was a time in season 3 where he suddenly decided, actually, I want this.
Yeah,
I've been pushed into this. I want it, and I'm going to make it happen, which is a very Bruyere thing. And also that he made it happen, and that was a cool moment. But also, I know, and it was a good scene. It was well played, and I know that obviously, as Phil says, he's new to this, and that sometimes, well, he's not new anymore, mate. You're obviously like
You're fine, yeah.
But you know that it is something that maybe is not always natural for you that you're working on, and so seeing that work pay off in a scene is also for me just watching you as a player change is a really gratifying thing to watch. So that's definitely there. And my kind of global feel on this, because I mentioned, with the ghouls in the Memoriams, that their commitment and the way they just really leaned in and punched in was very impressive to me. There was a point between season 1 and 2 where we had like a 10-year time jump, and I was saying to the players that I wanted the characters to feel like they changed over that time, also that they had established relationships in that time that were not there in season 1. Everybody did that. Every player, across player, did that, and that was like, I felt that was like a real triumph. So in terms of my favorite moments, they're often where I feel like people have kind of rose to the challenge and then told a better story as a result of it. So that's where I would come from. So on that somewhat disgustingly wholesome note, I apologize to you all. We're going to kind of start wrapping this up. So thank you, everybody, for putting forward your questions. It's been really nice to hear them. If I missed any for whatever reason, or if you just didn't get a chance to say, do let us know, because we may do something like this in the future, or we'll find a way to address them or to answer them. And of course, we will be back next week with season 3, episode 6 of Blood on the Tamases, where things will get fun. And for those of you who support us via story votes, keep your eyes open before next week, because something will be coming soon. And otherwise, thank you very much.
Safe Memoriam.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching this episode of Blood on the Tamases. If you'd like to keep up with all the latest news, follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And remember, if you want to join us live, be sure to tune in every Monday at 7 p.m. UK time on Twitch. Or you can catch up on YouTube and our podcast. And a big thanks to our supporters on Patreon and all of you beautiful disaster ghouls. We'll see you next time.